Alcoholic, if you can hear me, give me a thumbs up. Wonderful. We are connecting. Phil, thank you for that semi-adequate introduction. I appreciate you, buddy. And thanks for your service here in Alcoholics Anonymous. That's terrific. I want to thank the group for inviting me to come and participate this evening, and my friend Ben, who offered the invitation. I don't know if Ben's here, but that's fine. I wouldn't have thanked him if I knew for sure if he wasn't here, but Ben's a good friend of mine, and I appreciate the opportunity to come participate. I've had a good day, a good sober day here in Alcoholics Anonymous today, and I hope you have too. My sobriety date is September 16th, 1991, which puts me at the 29-year mark. And boy, you know, I got onto the meeting about 15 minutes before, and what lively banter was going on. I always know I'm at a good meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, there's certain things that you look for, you know, the music of Alcoholics Anonymous, where everybody's talking and nobody's listening. You know, I'm so familiar with that. And people are teasing each other and encouraging each other. And I logged on tonight and I heard that immediately, and it always makes me feel like I'm in the right place. That kind of energy attracted me to Alcoholics Anonymous when I was new and broken in half, and my life had run out of my sleeves. One of the first things that started to heal me wasn't the literature of Alcoholics Anonymous. It certainly wasn't the relationship I have with God, because I didn't have one. It was the atmosphere of Alcoholics Anonymous, that energy where you walk in with these preconceived ideas about what not drinking is going to look and feel like, because I have experience with trying not to drink before I come to Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's not good. It's colorless, and it's boring, and it's gray, and a day feels like a week, and a week feels like a month, and a month feels like a year, and it's just too much for a guy like me. So I think Alcoholics Anonymous in its purest form, in a word, should always be enthusiastic. There's something about that that's healing to the alcoholic. We are people of chaos and action. You know, we are not the people in the bar. When the fight broke out, we ran for the exit door. We, like moths to a flame, just slowly edged towards the mayhem, and we didn't know why. We're attracted to that energy. We're attracted to that high energy. And in Alcoholics Anonymous, that's the environment we seem to do the best in: enthusiastic, active AA. And I'm grateful that I was able to log in and participate in some of that and listen to some of that and let it wash over me. It means the world to me. I had the honor and privilege this morning of speaking for a couple of hours in Russia, and which is interesting because you do it with an interpreter and you have no idea if your message is being interpreted accurately or if it's landing on ears, if they're getting it at all. And how do you speak in Russia? You know, what do you log on and just stare into the screen and go, vodka, vodka, vodka? You know, what do you say, you know, just to get their attention? And but what I found out is, you know, by just watching the heads nod and watching people pay attention, you realize that it's all the same. It's the same disease all over the world. And luckily, Alcoholics Anonymous has now gone to all corners of the globe, if you will. And because the problem is the same, the solution is the same. And it's transmittable. It's transmittable through print. It's transmittable through Zoom. We're finding out that our solution crosses all boundaries. And this is important because our disease crosses all boundaries. It's no respecter of age or sex or economic standing or education or any of these things that might separate people in society. Do not separate us from alcoholism. This is a disease that will get you if you have it, regardless of the other facts of your life. And we must have a solution that's at least as powerful or more malleable than the problem. And luckily for us, we have tapped into a solution that not only is more powerful than our alcoholism, but I think more flexible. I think that it is able to cross all boundaries and obstacles. And I know that from my own personal experience. You see, the good news for a guy like me when I arrive at Alcoholics Anonymous is this and nothing less. AA doesn't work because of the alcoholic. It works in spite of the alcoholic. And what good news that is for a guy like me, because what do I bring to recovery when I get here that's of any use at all, right? Except what? Fierce resentment, misunderstanding, fear, old ideas, wreckage of my past, pitiful, incomprehensible demoralization. If you stack everything that I bring to AA with me, none of it is going to be helpful in recovering from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. And so what good news it is that AA actually works better that way. In fact, the society of AA, the fellowship of AA, the men and women of AA seem to like it better the worse you are. I was made to feel very welcome in AA. People like a challenge here, that's for sure. And if I was nothing else, I was a challenge. And so grateful for the good life I have today. I started drinking drunk when I was 17 years old. I don't know when my first drink was, not really interested in that. But I'll tell you, I was 17 when I got enough alcohol on board in one setting to get there. And we all know where there is, because alcohol, as much as anything, it transports me. It takes me to the land of I don't care. And that's where I want to live. That's where I want my mail delivered. You know what I mean? That's where I love to exist. It's one of the effects of alcohol I fell in love with from the very beginning, was this ability to wash my problems away, not remove them, not fix them, but suspend them in disbelief for a couple of hours where I could swim into this warm feeling of oblivion that vaguely resembled hope. When I get drunk, I'm hopeful, regardless of the problems of my life. When I get drunk, I'm hopeful regardless of my anxieties, my feeling that I don't fit into the world, this feeling that I'm $1 short and a day late. All of that goes away. I've heard men and women tell their stories for 29 years, and almost all of us talk about getting drunk for the first time. And we all say it the same way. Maybe there's a variation or a twist or two, but it's something similar to this. I got drunk for the first time and I felt 10 feet tall. I felt smarter, better looking, more confident, funnier. And we say all of these things as though, I don't know, they're delusion or they're fantasy. I'm not sure about that. The big book of Alcoholics Anonymous promises me that every man and woman is blessed with certain skills, aptitudes, and abilities. We'll call those our gifts from God. These are the things about ourselves that we're just naturally good at. We didn't have to work at them. We were just born that way. Your birthright, if you will. For a guy like me, what if those things that you always suspected were there, always felt they were there, but you couldn't quite make contact with it? Maybe you couldn't make contact because of the selfishness and self-centeredness that seems to dog my every step, but they felt they were just outside of your fingertips. Something in AA we like to refer to as potential. How many of us have been told what great potential we have? And then something as wonderful as alcohol comes into this alcoholic system, and suddenly these suspected gifts, these gifts I can't seem to make contact with, my gifts from God, well, let me tell you, now they're firmly in my hand. And when I get drunk at 17, it is not fantasy and it is not delusion. You put a couple of drinks in me, I am funnier, damn it, and I am more confident, and I am smarter and more confident and better looking and all the things I want to be. And it's really not any more complicated than this. I get drunk at 17 and I like the drunken version of myself better than I like the sober version. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. And if I could have stopped the game there, if I could have experienced the ease and comfort that comes with taking a couple of drinks and stopped the game there, I'd have never had to come to Alcoholics Anonymous. But because I'm an alcoholic and I have the physical aspect of our disease, where one's too many and 1,000's not enough, and you put alcohol of any type in my system and I'm off to the races. I have an abnormal reaction that only 10% of the population falls victim to. That abnormal reaction is the phenomenon of craving, and I can't stop or predict with any certainty what's going to happen with my drinking once I begin. And here's the problem with that. There is no indicator that I can detect that allows me to realize I am different bodily from my fellows. I only live in my mind and only drink in my body. How would I know if I have no indication that I'm having an abnormal experience? You see, people watch a guy like me drink over the years, and my drinking is confusing and baffling to other people. I was 19 years old, and my grandfather said to me, son, even a train stops sometimes. You know what I mean? I had a girlfriend tell me that I drank like a comic book character. I didn't know what they were talking about because my drinking feels normal to me. You know what feels abnormal to me or is confusing and baffling? Other people's drinking. And you know what I'm talking about. You know, it's 11 o'clock at night. You're sitting in the bar. You got there at 5 o'clock. By this time, you have an investment of time, energy, and money. And it's just getting good. You know what I mean? The music's sounding great. You've met some guys. Now you're going to be lifelong friends. You're making business plans. That waitress you saw on the way in, you weren't interested in. Now she has potential. Everything is getting good. It's about to get wonderful. You can feel it in your bones. You're so excited. And then that one guy stands up from the table, looks at his watch and says, oh my goodness, I didn't realize it was getting so late. I got to work tomorrow. And he goes home. That type of drinking is confusing and baffling to me. I want to be clear. I have never taken a drink where it felt like it was the wrong amount at the wrong time. My drinking, to me, has always felt necessary and accurate. And that's part of the problem of my alcoholism. I have a disease, a malady, an illness, whatever you want to call it, I got it, that tells me I don't have it. That is filled with justification and rationalization, how I can say I know what it looks like, but it's not really true. Silkworth, in the doctor's opinion, says that after a short amount of time, my alcoholic life will seem the only normal one. You see, because although trouble starts to enter my story by the time I'm in my mid-20s, trouble's not a big deal for a real alcoholic. Normal people are shocked that trouble doesn't get folks like us sober. We go to jail. He must be ready now. Nope. We lose a great job. He must be ready now. Nope. We blow up a beautiful relationship. He must be ready now. Nope. We have doctors tell us we keep drinking, we're going to die. He must be ready now. Nope. All of these things, all this information, all these consequences don't seem to allow us to even step on the brake. In fact, we seem to step on the accelerator. The worse our life gets, the worse it gets, the harder we drink. And we don't realize, once again, this illness, malady, or disease I have, we don't realize this is happening. I don't understand that the worse my life gets, the more dependent I become on alcohol for that oblivion, for that relief, for that feeling that vaguely resembles hope that I'll sell my soul for a couple of hours every night just to turn the heat off of my head. I don't know that's happening. And when trouble comes into my life, I get justification and rationalization, the two best friends a drinking drunk will ever have. And what that looks like in my life is I got to be able to go to jail and upon my release to face the family that loves me so much and wants the best things in the world for me. I have to be able to look them in the eye and with a smile on my face in a joking manner say, well, everybody goes to jail once in a while. No, they don't. No, they don't. I've been sober a long time. It's shocking how many people I've met in the real world that have never been to jail. I stopped asking. It was embarrassing, but my alcoholic life seems the only normal one. You don't believe me? Let's play a little game right here online. If you can hear this, how many people who can hear this have ever been handcuffed? Just raise your hand if you've ever been handcuffed. Okay. All right. It's worse than I thought. Everybody's hand goes up. And what I want to explain to you is you ask a question like that in Alcoholics Anonymous, this is what people think. Why is he asking that? That's a stupid question. Of course I've been handcuffed. I'm an alcoholic, for God's sake. And let me tell you something, though. You don't get that reaction at the Rotary Club. You know what I'm saying? You don't get that at the church knitting circle. But here in Alcoholics Anonymous, we understand that our alcoholic life becomes the only normal one. And you don't have to go to jail and be handcuffed to be an alcoholic, but there's certain things, consequences that come with the drinking game. Some of those consequences are seen by others, but really the most destructive ones are seen and felt by ourselves, because alcohol is the perfect remover. You see, it'll get everything you got, and it took everything from you can take from a man. And it removes stuff in a certain order, it seems, for all of us. You see, for me, it took the stuff that the world can see, you know, the stuff that money can buy. You know, it took my career, it took my car, it took my house, it took my place in the community, it took the respect people had for me. It took that stuff first. And when it was done with that, then it started taking the stuff money can't buy. And you realize that that turns out to be the valuable stuff. And it took my hope, and it took my faith, and it took my dreams, and it took my potential, and it took my imagination, you know, where you can't wait to see what's going to happen the next day, and you feel like things are going to get better. And when it took from me everything you can possibly take from a man, and the kind thing would have been to kill me, it doesn't kill me. It seemingly sets its sights on my family. And then it starts taking from them the things money can't buy: hope and faith and trust and peace and serenity. You know, and now they're not sleeping at night because they got an alcoholic in the family that they love, and they're watching him on a fast track to the graveyard. And they know that everything that they're trying doesn't seem to arrest my forward progress, my descent into hell, if you will. And aren't they trying? My family is laying down across the railroad tracks of alcoholism, and they're getting run over time and time again. And they're blocking me with all these things that people try to apply to alcoholism: love, common sense, frothy emotional appeal. We love you so much. You're such a great guy. And what they're doing without meaning to is they're making the problem worse, because they take an alcoholic like me who doesn't understand what he's in the grips of, and then people that love me that don't understand alcoholism actually end up brainwashing me. And if you come to Alcoholics Anonymous, you've probably been brainwashed by people that care about you. And you're going to have to get over that brainwashing if you're going to survive this thing that we call alcoholism. Because everyone that cared about me said the same thing: you're a great guy, you got a lot of potential, you could be anything you wanted to be, go anywhere you wanted to go, all your dreams would come true if you just quit drinking. Everything would work out if you just quit drinking. You'd be so happy if you just quit drinking. Well, the problem was I laid my experience against that information, and what did I find? Went to jail, I was drinking, smacked that guy, I was drinking, blew up the job, I was drinking, blew up the relationship, I was drinking. Yeah. You know, that makes sense to me. And it's easy for this alcoholic to identify whiskey as the culprit. It's that damn whiskey. You know, if I didn't drink, Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous in the third step says, a guy like me, my propulsion system, if you will, in my alcoholic life, says I'm driven by 100 forms of fear, self-seeking, self-delusion, and self-pity. And that self-delusion, that's the one that kills us. That's the one that encompasses what? Our old ideas. You know, a self-delusion is a false psychotic belief that I possess about myself. That just means there's something about me I think is true that just ain't true. And by the way, I'm the only one that thinks it. And here's the self-delusion about my alcoholism: I'm a wonderful guy. Just ask me. I just drink too much. Now, I am quick to admit I am a liar, a cheat, and a thief under the influence. But I know in a sober state, those things would be impossible. And, you know, you got to come to Alcoholics Anonymous and get sober to find out, like I did, that you take a horse thief and you sober him up. You just got a sober horse thief. Because I continued to lie, cheat, and steal sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I began to realize this thing called alcoholism might go a little bit deeper than drinking and not drinking. And I did all the things that we do to avoid doing something about our drinking. The consequences seem to be directly linked to my drinking, yet I can't imagine giving up the drinking. By every form of self-deception and experimentation, I will try to prove myself an exception to the rule therefore non-alcoholic. And why is my drinking so valuable to me? We talk about progression. And when I came to AA, you said that it was a progressively fatal illness. And if you would ask me, what is progression about alcoholism, I would have said, I don't know. You drink more, you drink harder stuff, you drink more often. And we all know that's not the progression of alcoholism. All of us drink differently, and we drink with different condiments. That's not what we have in common. We have the physical aspect, the phenomenon of craving. We all have that. And most of us have the connection that we don't talk about a lot. We talk about what alcohol did to us, but we don't want to talk about what alcohol did for us. And I think it's important. I remember that there's something somewhere buried deep in my memory that I know will make the big hurt go away. I have that. Most of us remember the effect produced by alcohol. You know, it's one of the explanations. Why do guys like me go back to the grinder? You know, why do guys like me come to AA, make a good beginning, start to have their life put back together, or even have their life put back together, only to return to the very monster that ripped the skin off of my life? And we're confused by it. And why would you leave a magical, beautiful place called Alcoholics Anonymous? Is it the only thing in your life that ever worked? Why would you ever leave? And I understand it. It's that untreated alcoholism. Turns out that the muscle of my alcoholism isn't really flexed when I'm drinking. Turns out that drinking actually reduces the worst aspects of my alcoholism. Oh yeah, it'll kill me eventually, and it'll rip the skin off of anyone that cares about me, and I'll be a liar, cheat, and a thief, and an irresponsible loser. But that ain't nothing compared to what it does to me when I'm sober. And Silkworth writes about it so clinically, so casually in the doctor's opinion. And he says, you separate a guy like me from alcohol, and in short order, I will find myself irritable, restless, and discontent. The biggest understatement in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Irritable, restless, and discontent, our definition for untreated alcoholism in a sober state, is what drives people like me back to the drink. And I don't drink again, kidding myself it's going to work this time. I'm drinking to overcome a mental obsession. And the mental obsession is I can't forget what made the bit hurt go away. And now I'm sober. And I'm irritable, restless, and discontent. And I did this for 5 to 6 years after I had self-knowledge, after I knew the drink was killing me, after I didn't want to do it anymore. I woke up every day and it was in the room with me. That thought, not tonight, God. Please, God, I'm dying here. Not tonight. The fun was over. I didn't want to do it. I understood drinking didn't work for me. But self-knowledge avails me nothing. I absolutely can't stop drinking on the basis of self-knowledge. I've got all the information. By the time I came to AA, I did not have a lack of information problem. I had a lack of power problem, and I didn't know it. And what happens to me when you separate me is I get that irritable, restless, and discontent nature, and I start to hang on by my fingertips because I know I shouldn't drink. And then one day, maybe 2 days after I quit drinking, maybe 12 days after I quit drinking, maybe I'll make it a month. A little voice pops up in my head that sounds a lot like me. And it says one word. And that one word is the beginning of the end. And the word is forever. You're going to feel like this forever. Because by then, the color has dripped out of the picture and my world has become gray and I can't enjoy life and I'm irritable, restless, and discontent. And if that's sobriety, I'm drinking tonight. And I always drank again after a brief period of sobriety because I thought it was going to last forever, that feeling. You know, here's my definition of untreated alcoholism in a sober state. I have a complete inability to experience joy regardless of the facts of my life when I'm sober. And let me tell you, that's what drives guys like me back to the drink. And I have been there on several occasions. I would love to tell you, well, that only happens to you when you're new. I had it happen to me at 8, 9 years sober. I had it happen to me at 15 years sober. I had it happen for a short period of time when I was over 20 years sober. And luckily I recognized it and knew what it was, because here's the funny thing, our ego rebuilds itself. And you can find yourself 4, 5, 6 years sober, having a good life with your life repaired in AA. And you could be going crazy in your own skin. And your sponsor will look you in the eye and go, you're just suffering from untreated alcoholism. And you'll say, no, that's not it. Because I know you'll say that because I said it. Because it didn't make any sense. I'd been sober too long for that. Do you know what we do really well? We do this better than any society I know. Alcoholics do wrong really well. We like it when things are wrong. Oh my God, give me something to point to. Give me a bad medical diagnosis. Give me a reversal of fortune. Break my heart. Give me something I can point to and go, that's why I'm screwed up. That's why I'm screwed up. You know what we hate? I mean, it'll make us crazy. What makes me insane? When there's nothing wrong, but I feel like something's wrong. You know what I mean? I've done that spiritual math, laying in bed late at night. I can't sleep. 9 years sober, going, well, I got a nice career. I'm making a lot of money. It's going really well there. Got out of debt, got out of trouble. I'm active in Alcoholics Anonymous. I sponsor a lot of people. I'm respected in the program. That's going really well. Got a nice house, live in a nice neighborhood, got a bunch of great friends. That's going well. Got a beautiful woman that's married to me, sleeping next to me. You know, she says she's not going anywhere. That's a blessing. That's, man, my life is good. If it was any better, I'd go in the backyard and hang myself. And I don't know what the hell is wrong with me. I mean, what do you do when all your dreams have come true and you can't feel it? And people are saying stupid stuff to you in Alcoholics Anonymous. They're saying, well, it's just untreated alcoholism. It's a spiritual malady. And you're like, that's not it. I've been sober too long. I do too much in AA. And I got to tell you, that untreated alcoholism, that irritable, restless, and discontent, I am absolutely convinced it's available to me today. All I got to do is stop taking the simple actions that are suggested in Alcoholics Anonymous. Let me do that one day at a time for an extended period, and I will find myself, what? Running the show. You see, you introduced me to the real problem way back in the third step when I was new. And how many times in my sobriety have I forgotten who the real enemy is? How many times have I thought, like the old idea, that the culprit was whiskey and I don't drink anymore, therefore I must not have a problem? But you and Alcoholics Anonymous told me way back when, well, in my first 90 days of sobriety, I had a sponsor take me through that third step and beat it into my head. Selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our trouble, driven by 100 forms of fear, self-seeking, self-delusion, and self-pity. We step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt us, seemingly without provocation. But we find that earlier we had taken actions based on self, which later places us in a position to be hurt. So our troubles, we think, are of our own making. They arise out of ourselves. And the alcoholic is an extreme example of self-will run riot, though he usually doesn't think so. That will be my sober t-shirt if I ever make one. You will see me at conferences and all my t-shirt will say is, though he usually doesn't think so. That will kill me if I ever, and I pray I don't, if I ever leave a magic place called Alcoholics Anonymous and you hear through the AA grapevine, guess who drank? And my name is associated with that. Bet your bottom dollar the real problem was I didn't think it was me. You see, what will kill an alcoholic of my type is to forget that the rules of engagement for recovery from alcoholism do not change because of how long I've been here and how much I've done in Alcoholics Anonymous. My problem will always be selfishness and self-centeredness. And we talk about our selfishness, we talk about our ego, at least I have been guilty of it, as though it's something that without my permission attached itself to me. Like it's not really part of me. It is me. It is me without directed thought. It is me without directed life. It is me without the power that we talk about endlessly here in Alcoholics Anonymous, that we are trying to remind each other on a daily basis that our number one job in recovery is to hook up with this power as often as we can. This power I choose to call God, and I don't care what you call it. I'll tell you I need it. If I'm going to live happy, joyous, and free, if I have any shot on staying sober and enjoying this experience called life, I must have power. The dilemma has not changed. Lack of power is still my dilemma. I come to Alcoholics Anonymous. I know nothing about this. I'm filled with old ideas. And on my second night in recovery, I get lucky. I hear people saying Alcoholics Anonymous all the time. They're here by the grace of God. I don't agree, but that's okay. I think that's a wonderful thing to say. I enjoy hearing it. I just don't agree. I think I'm here by luck. I think I was lucky enough to get into a place called Alcoholics Anonymous. I stay by the grace of God, but blind luck got me here. I know too many people that didn't make it to AA that are just as worthy of another shot at a good life. My best friend when I was 19, Billy was blind drunk at my house. So was I. Billy got up off the couch and said, I'm going to drive home. I said, Billy, don't drive home. You're blind drunk. Spend the night, which he did quite often. He said, man, it's just a couple of miles. I'll see you in the morning. And Billy jumped on his motorcycle, and a mile and a half from my house, Billy killed himself driving into a power pole. Now, I don't want anything to do with a God that'll pick me and let Billy die. You see, I had to believe that God's got a plan, but I don't need to know what it is for him to believe that he has a plan. But I think that I was on a path that God couldn't reach me. You know, if there's a higher power, there's got to be a lower power. And I've got free will, and Billy had free will. You know, I was lucky it didn't cost me my life. And unfortunately, it cost Billy his. You see, I think God weeps when one of us doesn't make it. But I know this, God gave me free will. He's not going to reach in and pull me from the alcoholic abyss. But what he did is he created Alcoholics Anonymous for guys like me. And now there's a whole station of alcoholics waiting for guys like me. And I show up in AA and I don't know the truth. And the truth was men and women have been going to AA, some of them for decades by the time I got here when I was new. And they've been doing the things that we do in AA, doing 12-step work, setting up meetings, cleaning up meetings, making sure the apparatus, spiritual in nature, that was Alcoholics Anonymous was up and running and able to absorb another suffering alcoholic. And I didn't know any of that, right? I'm selfish and self-centered. I'm dying from alcoholism. I came to Alcoholics Anonymous and I took advantage of all of it. And that's what I was supposed to do when I was new. That's why those good men and women of Alcoholics Anonymous did all that work. So it was up and running when I had my chance to recover. But I'm not new anymore, right? I understand the sacrifice that men and women made so I could have a shot at this new life. And I owe a lot. And so I will never be too busy, too occupied, too important to try to give back to Alcoholics Anonymous what you so freely gave to me. I owe you my life. The good men and women of Alcoholics Anonymous, willing to be inconvenienced, willing to have their pleasures interrupted. And I'll tell you, you were on duty my second night of recovery. You know what I mean? I got 12-stepped in an AA clubhouse. And it's a good thing you 12-stepped me because I was leaving, right? Coming up on 48 hours without a drink, that alcoholic madness in my head, physically, every molecule in my body demanding a drink of alcohol, me looking around at your solution and not seeing it because I just see a bunch of clean, happy people that all know each other. And it repels me. It doesn't attract me when I'm 48 hours sober. And I got to leave Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm not leaving because AA doesn't work or God doesn't exist or the steps aren't a miracle. I'm leaving because I have a mental obsession beyond my human power that demands I go get a drink to fix my mind. I got a body screaming to go get a drink beyond my human power to stop my legs from taking me out the door to the bar. You see, I've lost the power of choice where the drink is concerned. And I got lucky. I got 12-step. You see, there were men in that group that understood they would have to carry the message to the alcoholic that still suffers. Nobody expected me to shake hands or introduce myself. They knew I wasn't capable. Good Lord, My scorecard reads 0. My tank's on empty. You think I'm going to be able to do that? They understood. I mean, the dumbest thing we say to newcomers is we don't drink no matter what. I mean, that's ridiculous. Do you think I didn't try that before I got here? You knew I'm going to drink no matter what if something big doesn't happen. And the first big thing that happens to me in AA is I get 12-step. And the men and women of Alcoholics Anonymous take turns laying down across the tracks of alcoholism, and they take the blow. Because when we're new, we come into Alcoholics Anonymous like a freight train. And the men and women of AA absorb the blow of the newcomer's alcoholism. And we take it on every day. And we take it on gleefully and gladfully and hopefully because we've been there. You see, when we see the new man or woman standing in front of us, they don't understand what we know. We are them and they are us. And so I got a sponsor in Alcoholics Anonymous my second night. He was assigned to me. I didn't know that most places don't do that in AA. I got sober in that old school AA where they said, this is Mark, he'll be your sponsor. And I didn't know what that meant. And that doesn't even matter because he knew what it meant, right? He's an active member of Alcoholics Anonymous, which meant what? I'll be an active member of AA. He's got a home group, which meant I would have a home group. He's got commitments in AA, which meant I'll have commitments in AA. He works with others, which meant I'll work with others. He's couched in the literature of Alcoholics Anonymous, which meant I'll be couched in the literature. Everything that my sponsor had was given to me. It's all available to me if I'm willing to have it. And I didn't know it, but in that moment when I got a sponsor in AA, my life changed. And if you had told me you just had the most important experience of your life, I would have said, what happened? I missed it because I didn't have eyes to see or a heart to feel. But if you ask me today, what are you so excited about in AA, Don? I'd say, man, I'll tell you, I got a sponsor. His name's Vin K. He's 40 years sober, and he is completely unimpressed with me. My prayer for you is that your sponsor is unimpressed with you. That is the greatest asset I have. He thinks so very little of me. And he is constantly that guardian of my character defects. You know what I mean? He's the guy that holds the mirror up. He's the guy that keeps me on the high road. He's the guy that can see things about me I can't see about myself because he doesn't have my emotions about my life. I tell you how excited I am to be sponsored. I would talk to you about my home group, the SOS Men's Group. We meet on Monday and Wednesday nights at 7 o'clock. Until the pandemic, we met at St. James Church, you know. We have a book study, and then we have a speaker discussion meeting. And I love these guys, man. You know, that's where I draw a line in the sand on a weekly basis to make a stand for my life. I love the home group. I love the home group setting and everything that happens in it, where the 12-step work gets planned and then executed, where our meeting extends beyond the walls of that church, and we're involved in each other's lives and in 12-step work. And we like to think we're a force for good. We like to think we're a grateful group of alcoholics, and we hope we don't have to tell anybody that. We hope our actions will indicate that. And I love that group. I'll tell you that I'm in the literature of Alcoholics Anonymous on a daily basis. I'll tell you I have commitments in AA that keep me from blowing away, these little tethers that tie me to the program. I would talk about all these wonderful things in my life, and you might, if you're paying attention, go, wow, that's everything that was given to him his second night in AA. It's not a complicated program. It's not hard. It's very simple, but it demands consistency. And you taught me to be consistent. What I do for a living is interesting. I'm in sales. I've been in sales for a long time. And you know what sales is? Really, it's negotiation. That's all it is. It's one negotiation after another. And I negotiate for a living. In fact, all of us, to a degree, are negotiators, aren't we? We negotiate where we live, what we're going to have for dinner, what we're going to watch on TV, where we're going to go on vacation, what we do for recreation, who we sleep with. It's all up for negotiation. I negotiate every area of my life. You know what I don't negotiate? My membership in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I don't negotiate it because it might cost me my life if I do. And what does negotiation sound like in Alcoholics Anonymous? Do I really need to take a commitment? You know, I've been going to this meeting for a long time. I've always had a commitment. You know, I need a little break. You know what? Do I really need to sponsor this guy too? My God, I sponsor a lot of people. Do I really need to sponsor him too? You know, they asked me to get on that committee, and I've been doing committee work for a long time. You know, I think I need a little break. You know, I think I need to let somebody else have that experience of service. I've done enough of that stuff. All these things that we negotiate in AA, turns out we negotiate ourselves right out the door. We waltz right away from our recovery. So it's a simple rule they taught me when I was new. Don't negotiate your recovery. Don't give up your seat for nothing. And what is not negotiating in AA sound and look like? You say yes. You say yes and you figure it out later, right? That's what they told me. Just say yes. And that begins to be our approach to life, doesn't it? And you told me that my very life as an ex-problem drinker depended on my constant thought of others and what I could do to help meet their needs. You told me I was going to have to go on this very long journey from being a taker to being a giver. And I didn't know the way. And you told me the truth about my alcoholism. You said, listen, man, we know you took a long, long, dangerous walk into some dark, dangerous woods. But here's the difference. You walked in alone, but you're walking out with us, and we're Alcoholics Anonymous, and we know the way. So take our hand and hold on tight, because we don't want to lose you. We lose a lot of guys on the way out of the woods. And so you promised me you knew the way out, but not just the way out from my drinking. You see, that's what I think it is in the beginning, that you're going to teach me how not to drink. That's not what you did. You taught me how to live. You taught me how to be a man. You taught me how to be responsible. You taught me how to be accountable. And you did it with the oldest spiritual tool known to man, the invitation. You used this spirit of invitation, this principle of invitation from the time I was new. And the reason that that is so important is we invite people to this new life. It leaves the sufferer with some degree of dignity and self-esteem of the right kind. I remember being new and my sponsor would roll up on me and say, hey, man, I got to set up a meeting tomorrow night. I could really use your help. Can you show up early? And I'd think to myself, wow, my sponsor needs my help. And I'd go, sure, sponsor, anything for you. And I'd show up early. We'd set up this meeting. At the end of it, he'd shake my hand. He'd say, thanks, kid. I really appreciate that. And it made me feel good, made me feel like I was pulling my weight. You know what it made me feel? Like maybe I had a little strength left in me yet. Maybe I did have a little purpose. I felt good. I felt a part of. You made me feel special. You included me. You see, you invited me to your AA meetings. You invited me into your AA service work. You invited me out to coffee. You invited me into your homes. You invited me into your cars. You invited me into your circle, into your friendships, into your conversations. You saved my life by being inclusive. You were doing what the big book talks about. See, the big book says the realm of the spirit is broad, roomy, and inclusive, never exclusive. We believe it's available to all men. You are a living example of that. You see, I'd rather see a sunset than listen to a sermon. And the men and women of Alcoholics Anonymous were the most beautiful sunset I'd ever seen in my life. You led by example. You led by invitation. You see, you didn't have to tell me you were grateful. I could see it. You didn't have to tell me how to live. I just had to do what you did. I watched you do work for others. I watched you live altruistically, and I watched you do it without complaint, and I watched you do it without looking for a reward. And it was fascinating. I watched my sponsor and my grand sponsor, who used to take me along on 12-step calls. I watched them walk into tough neighborhoods, tough situations, carrying their big books, right? Like they were vampire fighters with a cross, you know? They'd carry those big books and they'd go into those drunken situations, man. And I watched the hand of AA and the hand of God work through these men. And I watched it reach into the abyss and grab suffering alcoholics. I watched people try Alcoholics Anonymous, and I watched people get sober, and it was magnificent. And I got to tell you, having my life changed, saved, and resurrected in AA has been impressive to me. But it's nothing compared to when you get to spectator view, when you get to watch it from a distance, and you get to see all the angles of what really happens here. And you begin to understand who really runs AA, because that's the old joke. Who runs AA? Nobody. Who's in charge? Nobody. Who do I go to if I have a complaint? Nobody, you know. But we all know that's not true. God runs AA. And I've known that for a long time. And if you don't believe me, I mean, next time you're in a meeting, look who's sitting left to you and right to you, and you know we couldn't do this, right? There's a power at work in Alcoholics Anonymous that's greater than us. And I've watched that power work in countless lives. Bill Wilson called what happens here a wholesale miracle. It happens with such regularity. I think we take it for granted, the magnificence of what we have here and what we are. At least I feel it's an honor and a privilege just to be a member of AA. Now, I've been sober almost 30 years, so I want to be very clear. I've had a well-rounded experience. I've been blessed. I've experienced every joy and every success and accomplishment and accolade, I suppose, that I ever thought I would, and more than that. I've had a good life here in Alcoholics Anonymous. But because it's a well-rounded human experience, well, goodness, I'd have every challenge, everything go wrong, every problem you can have, health problems, sex problems, marriage problems, money problems, because everybody gets their turn in the barrel. It's nothing personal. It's almost only a big deal because when it's happening to me, you know what I mean? But through it all, I've come to you. Good, bad, happy, and sad. I've shown up in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I've lived in a transparent manner when things are going good and things are going bad, when I look good and when I look bad. I've come to you and I've been honest, and you've never thrown me away. In fact, what you've done is you've laughed. You've laughed and you've looked me in the eye and you said, me too. And isn't that funny? You know, we talk about the propulsion system of untreated alcoholism, those four things that there's 100 forms of. One of them is self-pity. AA is a strange place. We will not tolerate self-pity. Now, to the untrained eye, that looks like we don't care. That looks like we don't have compassion. The truth is we are full of love, but we understand that self-pity kills alcoholics. Pour me another drink, right? And in AA, I didn't understand that at first because you used to make fun of my problems. It was unbelievable. I remember when my first sponsor found out I owed the IRS $80,000, and that's $1991, right? I looked it up. That's $157 in today's money, man. I owed a lot, and that's not a big deal if you got $500,000 in the bank. But let me tell you what, if you're working for minimum wage, which was $7.50 at the time, with taxes taken out, and you enter into a payment agreement with the IRS to give them $100 a month, this is what you think. Oh, good. 79,900 to go. You know what I mean? You're not thinking it's ever going to be okay. And when my sponsor found out that I owed that money, he immediately put it into service in Alcoholics Anonymous. And that's what we do, right? I mean, if any newcomer ever complained about the money he owed the IRS, my sponsor would go, hold that thought, Jimmy. Hey, Don, you got a minute? And I'd walk over innocently and he'd say, Don, tell Jimmy how much you owe the IRS. And I'd tell Jimmy, I owe the IRS $80,000. And Jimmy'd go, Jesus. And Jimmy would feel better and my sponsor would laugh. And I learned to laugh at my problems in AA because you made me realize they were the only thing I had of value. And it turns out that it's our problems and our mistakes and our imperfections that are valuable to others, not our successes. And my prayer for you as I close tonight is the prayer I always have in Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's simple. I pray we stay sober forever because I never want to forget that AA is so much more than just not drinking, but I got to quit drinking to work the program. So thanks for listening. It's been great being with you. Thank you.